Can you get Cab Calloway on it?
Because he thinks it's
Pack my panty waist sugar. I'm sorry to
Gambling is going on in here.
By the way, how is your father?
But I want to know, does it bother you?
To the Break Room Classic Film fans, it's tea time for a coffee break. Welcome back to the coffee house. Hopefully you have your coffee or whatever it is that you drink. It can be chai, it can be lemonade, it can be TCM Wine Club. Whatever it is that you drink, all parties are welcomed here. There's no discrimination on what you drink. Although this is the coffee house, come as you are, drink what you will. We're just here to have a good time. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I do have my coffee. My lipstick print always shows up before I do. And ladies and gents, if you have a boss cup, make sure the boss is facing front. Okay, so last week I introduced to you guys the Myrna Loy dress, my Thin Man dress. And if you have braved the front for the past 3 weeks with me talking for like a half an hour, rambling on about fashion and cinema, you will be rewarded this week, as I'm planning to keep this one quick, simple, and to the point. Quick. Gonna jump right into it. This week, it may not be any surprise to you for classic film fans, Topper. The dress that I have displayed to showcase to you guys this week is inspired by the Constant Bennett piece, worn in Topper 1937. Now, to give you a brief introduction to how Topper came about in my household, I knew Topper growing up thanks to my dad, who, amongst a lot of other shows from, Our Mrs. Brooks, The Real McCoy, which kind of has a connection with Big Luke, not Little Luke, with Big Luke. Topper was a name that was dropped constantly, and I would remember hearing that growing up often. It was Topper. And whenever I would watch a Hitchcock film that had Leo G. Carroll in it, my dad was like, "That's Topper." So that's how I associated Topper with Leo G. Carroll. Although, really, every time I see him, I just think of Hitchcock. I remember I have counted that in the past, like how many Hitchcock films is he in? Like he's always showing up. I associate Leo G. Carroll with Hitchcock, but my dad associates him with Topper because that's what he grew up on. So when I finally did see Topper, the film, the 1937 film, at the time, I don't think I was aware that it was actually a film series or a film period. It's based off of the 1926 novel by Thorne Smith. And it branched off, into a movie series. And then from there, it went to television, I think from 1953 to 55 for 2 seasons. It ran on the telly, and that's the one that my dad would talk about. But it had a life even after that. I think they wanted to revise it or did reintroduce it into, I think it was the 70s, somewhere in the 70s, a pilot for it and a made for TV film. But Topper was just always there. So when I finally did see the 1937 film, I was like, wait, this is Roland Young, which did my research, did my homework, did my background, and thanks to the intro and outro, you learn your basics. Okay, so this was a thing, this was a series, which is not uncommon, an uncommon thing to happen from radio to telly to film series. It's from novels, books, Broadway. It's all a collaborative effort. It all works together. But seeing that dress in the 1937 film, I instantly connected with that. The dress itself, with the credit that it gets on screen, is Samuel Lang for the 1937 Topper film. Listed as uncredited is Irene Lentz. Now, we're going to get into that in a moment, but 1937 birthed the 1938 Topper Takes a Trip film, which is the sequel to the first one. This one, we don't get Cary Grant in. We do get Roland Young in the first, second, and third one. The third film being with Joan Blondell and Carol Landis. Also with Dennis O'Keefe, Eddie Rochester Anderson, and Patsy Kelly. That means scram in New York. That's my Page Miss Glory quote. Whenever I think of Patsy Kelly, I hear that quote. If you haven't seen Page Miss Glory, that is such a lighthearted watch. I'd recommend Frank Mayhew. That laugh alone will brighten your day. Pat O'Brien, Mary Astor, Patsy Kelly. It is starring Marion Davies, Dick Powell. So that is definitely a watch you should watch if you want something light and a feel good film. So that's my recommendation for the day. But back to Topper. The 1938 film that followed up without Cary Grant at this point, Cary Grant from 1937 to 1938 had really came into his own now, and doing a follow-up to Topper didn't seem to be the right career move, although he did give his consent to use footage. I don't know if you'd call that a cameo. I guess I think of cameos are a little something different. We do see a clip of Cary Grant in the second one, which is just really footage from the first one. So I don't know if I call that a cameo, but he is in the second one. But in that particular film, listed Irene does get credit for. And yes, Irene was a one name designer, much like Adrian, which coincidentally, Irene would take the place of Adrian at MGM when Adrian left, wanting to do his own fashion line. And Irene, that's a story of its own. The first thing that comes to my mind is a quote that I had read a while back that said, "She is the most celebrated designer no one's ever heard of." But like, classic film fans, we know different. Doris Day fans, we know different. But if you are new to her, hey, don't feel bad. I will try best I can to catch you up to Irene. Such a tragic story. I really don't even know where to begin. She did do the costume designs, like I said, for MGM when Adrian left. Her and Mayer did not get along. Louis B. Mayer. They did not get along, but she had a really well-rounded, a really full life prior to that MGM story. She did everything from, acting in silent films with Mack Sennett. She did some Mack Sennett films. She also had her own boutique in the 20s called Irene of California, where she was basically just doing clothes for co-eds. And here's to me the big thing to take away from Irene. She was one of two, the other being Coco Chanel. Now, where I'm going with this, one of two to have her line, her clothes at the Bullocks Wilshire department store. Like, that's amazing. Like, to be the only two to have your clothes in a salon at the Bullocks department store, that's, to me, that's a big takeaway. I don't think it hurt that she was a designer prior to becoming, a studio designer. And prior to MGM, she worked for United Artists and Columbia. Her turnaround point was 1933 through Dolores Del Rio, who wanted Irene to do her garments for flying down to Rio, which, you guys, when you hear that, I think instantly people think of Fred and Ginger, because that is like what you can call their introduction, although unbeknownst to them then, to anyone then, that was going to breathe a life of its own. And that shows a lot to say for, not only did she create the garments for stars on screen, she did it all. So it wasn't just for films. And I mean, she's nominated twice for an Oscar for Midnight Lace with Doris Day. If you have not seen Midnight Lace, I always get excited. If you have not seen Midnight Lace, that's going to be my second recommendation. Those are the two films, Page Miss Glory and Midnight Lace. If you have not seen those two, write that to your list. Make that something that you watch. Midnight Lace and BF Starter with 1948 with Babs. Yes, she is Babs in this household, Barbara Stanwyck. She was nominated for an Oscar for both of those films, but I mean, even if the name doesn't ring a bell to you, you've seen her and probably didn't even know it just with those two films alone. The Postman always rings twice. Now that, yeah, that's her. Thrill of a Romance, You Were Never Lovelier, Rita Hayworth. Also Love or Come Back with Doris Day. So, you know, her and Doris Day were really, really, really good friends. Doris Day also, she also mentions her in her autobiography, even before Doris Day passed away, and in more recent interviews before she passed away, she would speak very fondly and highly of Irene and her talents and her skill as a designer. So I think that that's a testament to how good she really was as a designer. And it's just sad that her ending was such a tragic one. 1962, at only 61 years old, she committed suicide. And I guess I'm so reluctant to say that because it's such a sad ending to such a full career life. And just apparently something personally that the career just couldn't take the place of. So if you don't know that story, what possibly could have led up to that, because there is a lot of speculation to what could have led her to commit suicide. She did check into the Knickerbocker Hotel in Hollywood, which had its own history, all its own. But she checked into the 11th room floor, and I'll let you read the rest from there. So it is just a tragic ending to such a talented story. It's just such a talented career and life and clothes, that it's sad that it ended that way. But when I saw the fabric, I found the fabric too, and I'm gonna put my coffee down. When I found the fabric for this, I knew that was going to be my topper fabric, and I brought my book. I introduced you guys to my book several Fashion Fridays back. Every show that I do gets its own book where I put inside, you know, clothes that I am intending to make for that particular which I have done all of these for that particular show. So they all get their own page, and I'm just leaving that there. We have done a cinema copy on this one, but they all get their own page, and in the back of them, the way that it usually goes is, you know, I'll put the fabric that I want to use, how much fabric I want to use, the print, the style, anything that comes with creating the piece is what I'll write down. So all of these have been done, and usually once they've been done, they go into the book. So I have quite a few books of garments that I have already done. I ran across Katharine Hepburn, my Philadelphia story, which we did a few weeks ago. Here it is the page that I landed on first, is the topper. This one, I don't know if you guys can see it, is the topper piece. I would take it out, but I think that I have it pretty tightly bound. So yeah, so it wouldn't, oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, I was looking for, okay, I'm breaking away here, and that's my Audrey Hepburn pin that's getting in the way. My Roman holiday pin, I just thought I'd wear it this week since Audrey Hepburn's birthday is this week. And I'm also wearing, I know this is so off topic, I'm also wearing Pink in the Afternoon from Revlon. Because of Audrey Hepburn's birthday, I decided this week I'm just going to celebrate because it's something to make me happy. I was looking for this drawing when we did, I think 2 Fashion Fridays ago, when I showed you guys the derby, which I had, because I had 2 sketches for that. One was the initial sketch, which was called the derby, and then when I wanted to alter it, I changed it up a bit, so I had made a second sketch for it, and I couldn't find it, so I just ended up posting the original sketch that I had for the derby, and that's because it's in this book, because this is the one I ended up using for the show that I did, so it's in the book. So isn't that like if I hadn't looked for Topper, I wouldn't have found the derby, his Girl Friday, anytime, any place, anywhere. So this is the, if you can see it, this is the sketch. Okay, yeah, for the derby. So rewind, backtrack to last week's Fashion Friday, and this is it. But this is for Topper, which I'm trying to see if I can you? Okay, that was unsuccessful, but I think you guys can see it. Okay, so there we go. So this was my sketch for it, and then this is what ended up. So can you see what I mean? Like, it was like connection, that we success. We found our piece, we found our garment. I think what I like most about the piece itself, what generated with me when I even saw it on Constant Bennett, and that's another thing about Irene. As soon as I said Constant Bennett, as you know, from Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland, Ava Gardner, Ginger Rogers, Ilana Turner, it's really a long list of stars that she would dress on screen and off. But what registered with me most seeing it in Topper, to me, it wasn't really a set date when you could wear it. There's something that's a bit 20s to me about it, and that's just the blousing of the way the top is, almost like the loose fitting flapper, that loose top to the dress. Then of course it's 1937, and then it also reminded me of that jump start into the 40s. I instantly thought of the women, the fashion show, when we get toward the end of that fashion show with the women, how the jersey material, the jersey dresses are coming down, and they're very blousy, and they drape the tops, they drape, and so it even branched over to me into almost like a 40-ish look as well. And then fast forward, and it can kind of be like an 80s. When you look at some vintage 80s ads and prints, you can kind of rock it in the 80s too. That's exactly why I never, within reason, I never throw anything away. I usually just keep everything. If it's something I feel I'm not going to get any more use out of, I'm not going to be wearing anymore, I really just pack them away for a rainy day and kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then when something comes up, maybe years later or however much longer later, then I'm like, I have something. Let me reconstruct that. Let me redo that. Let me rework that. As I posted with you guys a few weeks ago, if you follow me on social media, I posted some jeans. And it just reminded me that I never would buy jeans to wear them. I'd buy them to reconstruct them. The jeans that I would buy would get ripped, or they would get recreated. They would be added onto. I never just bought jeans to wear jeans. So discovering those or finding those jeans was just a reminder. I've been like this my whole life. So that's what really drew me to create this piece, is how versatile and how I'm reluctant to use the word timeless. I think it can be overused or it can be misused, but in this case I really think it was a timeless garment that can be worn in any decade. So that's my my Topper talk, my cinema coffee talk. I know I did brief a little bit with the third Topper, the Topper Returns. I still haven't gotten that back yet, but that's okay. But I did mention that Eddie Rochester Anderson is in that one. If you follow me on social media, I know you have seen me post several Fashion Fridays and sometimes just at random a photo that I have of Eddie Rochester Anderson, and I've definitely decided that I'm going to make this a Fashion Friday one day in the future, that I received from my aunt, my great aunt, who was a story of her own. She was one of the first Blacks to have her own modeling agency in the 40s. It was out of Chicago, called Crest Modeling School. And I have so many things that I could share with you guys I'm hoping to do in the future. I mean, from America to Paris, it's really amazing to see the people that she was with and the things that she accomplished and the places that she went and the things she got to do in a time that it just really wasn't heard of. So that's going to be a Cinema Coffee Fashion Friday that I'm so looking forward to sharing with you guys in the future. So for now, I'm going to leave it here with Topper. my script reading group. If you're a part of my script reading group, I will see you guys next week. If you are just a part of the Cinema Coffee Fashion Friday group, then I will see you next Friday. No matter what group you are on, hit the subscribe button, like and share my coffee house with your friends, family, your social media pages, and be sure to tag me on your social media page if you share my coffee house, and I will retweet it. Until then, I know this weekend is Mother's Day, so I know I'm going to be remembering mine. I hope you guys are with yours. Please be safe, be well, take care, stay home, and I will see you next week. A bientôt.
Doesn't it bother you at all that you're married?
What I want to know is, does it bother you?
Say, you don't mind if I save my energy and just become nothing for a while, do you?
Well, I don't suppose I do. I don't know what you're talking about.
Dematerializing. Watch, it works like a zipper. Zip.